All right, in today's video lesson, we're going to learn a little bit about emotional processing and being able to label and identify emotions. Now, this is one of the most critical and yet also basic tools that we have to be able to do good emotional self-care and hygiene. Being able to know what you feel, how to identify it, why you feel it, that's all part of it. And so being able to know how to identify and articulate what you're feeling is going to be critical. And if you kind of think about it, for most of us as kids, we are taught a certain basic language, a vocabulary, if you will. We learn words like I'm happy, sad, mad, those kinds of things. They're basic identifiers for how we all feel. Now, the trick, though, is that as we get older, as we go into teen and adult years, our language has to increase along with our experiences. And so as we become adults, the things that we experience emotionally become more complex, they become more nuanced. And some of those words like happy, mad, sad are no longer sufficient for describing what it is that's going on within us. And whenever our experiences, the complexities of our experiences begins to outpace or outweigh the way we can articulate ourselves, that's when emotional hygiene issues become a problem, when we're no longer able to self-care because we can no longer articulate and identify what's going on within us anymore. And so this particular lesson is going to be talking about how we can make sure we're advancing our vocabulary and really being able to build on our ability to identify and label our emotions well. So to do this, I'm going to introduce you to a basic tool of identifying different categories of emotions. Now, first, what I want to do is I want to borrow off of a concept that most of us are already familiar with, and that's going to be the color wheel. Now, if you're familiar with the color wheel, you understand that there are certain things called primary colors. And primary colors are going to be your basic colors, the most fundamental ones. And then from there, you have secondary colors. And secondary colors are a derivation of a combination of other primary colors put together. And so by use of the color wheel, we're able to derive from more basic and foundational colors, much more nuanced and much more subtle colors that adds to the palette, if you will. The same is going to be true here when it comes to our emotions. Now, we're going to start off with a set of primary emotions. And again, as I mentioned before, these are kind of the emotions that we start off with as kids. They're the basic fundamental ones. So I have up here a list of some of the primary emotions that we all experience. Anger, fear, sadness are all key primary feelings that most of us can identify from a fairly early on age. Now, again, as I said before, the trick here is that we need to be able to develop the vocabulary to move beyond that, to be able to identify and maybe even paint a picture of what's going on within us with better accuracy. And in order to do that, we need to get access to secondary emotions and beyond. And so what that looks like here is if you can identify which primary feeling you're actually feeling and be able to know that it doesn't stop there. We have to be able to drive it down into what the secondary emotional level looks like and what that emotion actually means. And so if you can think about it this way, in any given situation, these are the first emotions that you're going to feel. What goes behind that emotion is going to be the next objective. That's going to be the processing point of digging into your emotions, why you feel what you feel. And so when you can say, I feel angry, but what is the anger really telling you? Is the anger really about any of these secondary emotions that might be going on? And so if you can identify that, you know what, I started off feeling angry, but really my anger is about one of these feelings. I might be feeling a sense of guilt, or feeling a little bit of shame or loss or loneliness. And this is just a simple few words I might put down here. There's plenty more that we can add to that. But you can even drill down even further to some more nuanced emotions, like I can feel regret, worthless, not enough, or powerless, or abandoned. These are all things that, again, give better nuance and texture and precision to what it is that we feel. And so the point behind this exercise is to be able to identify and start with, okay, all of us are going to feel these things at first. These primary emotions are meant to come on strong and fast, so we can identify when something's actually happening, but we don't want to stop there. We want to be able to drive our primary emotions down a little bit further to be able to identify what else is going on. So if you can do these things, if you can be sure to know that not to stop here, but to drive down even deeper, what you begin to do is you begin to expand your vocabulary. You begin to add more words and more nuance that allows you to articulate yourself, not just so that other people can understand you, but that you can understand yourself. And that really is the key money shot here, is that we want to be able to do things that allow us to be able to discover and understand ourselves better. And if we can do that, that is a extremely beneficial and even, I would say, advanced emotional exercise that we can all do to help improve our mental health and emotional health as well. Something else I'll note is that this is an example. This is an example of a feelings wheel, and this is something that we carry in our office, all of our offices, in our practice. And so, basically, is a list of just different emotions. And if you kind of see it, it looks like a color wheel. And so in the center part here are the primary emotions, and outside from there, it begins to start articulating some of the secondary and more nuanced emotions. So what I'll do is, as I post this video, I'll also post a link to an example of a feelings wheel. That'll help give you an example of different emotions that you might be feeling. A lot of times it's easier to look and see, okay, am I feeling these things? That way you can kind of identify if there's a feeling that you're actually experiencing rather than trying to come up with it on your own. So that just might be another thing that you can do to help yourself. So definitely install this part of this tool in your processing work, and that'll help you get much further along in terms of your own self-care and advancing your own mental health. Thanks for listening.